Chit Chat is sponsored by Fun Again Games, where everyone is welcome at our table, and your source for hard-to-find imports, liquidation games, new releases, and much more. Be sure to visit funagain.com to check it out. It's episode 94 of Chit Chat, and we're talking about some of the do's and don'ts for getting people into gaming. There are some things to think about when putting a group together that includes new gamers. And speaking of groups, the whole MVM crew is headed to the Buckeye Game Fest for games, and more games. Welcome back to Chit Chat. It is episode 94. I have to be reminded. It is episode 94, and real human beings are sitting here, not animated faces.
We hope.
Hello.
Hopefully. Unless I've deleted all of this, in which case you're just hearing my voice but not seeing me. But probably I won't make that mistake again. One person you're not seeing tonight, but he's here in spirit, is Jeremy Howard. He is up at MVM North doing something else other than being on Chit Chat with us
Getting
tonight.
ready for our big con this weekend.
Yeah, we do have a con. As of time of recording, we are going to the Buckeye Game Fest this week. In fact, if you're watching this live for the first time, we're probably there right now teaching a game, but we're also going to be in the comments at the same time, so wish us luck there. But anyway, we're going to that convention. This is Chit Chat 94. We are talking about getting people into gaming, into the hobby. This was Emily's idea.
Hello.
So we're not talking about forcing people into gaming.
No.
But when there's someone who might be on the cusp of being interested, we're going to talk about some of the things maybe you could do, some of the things maybe we want to avoid, if you want to bring those people into the hobby in a nice, welcoming fashion.
So before we talk about getting people into gaming, I want to talk about getting a specific person into a specific game. Last Chit Chat, we gave away Brian Borer. We ran a contest, and the winner for that game is Blaine Allward. Congratulations, Blaine. Thank you for your comment. You have won, so please email us at manvsmeeple@gmail.com so we can get that game out to you. And today, we're giving away Trek 12. This is a game that we've been talking about. David loves. We're actually playing it this weekend with people at the convention, so
we may be playing it as well. Right at this very moment as you watch this.
We might be.
One thing we realized before we started recording, Ryan hasn't played it?
I actually have not played it. All the times that you two loved it so much, you two just kept playing it. You played it. We played it on the live stream. I think actually it was you two and maybe Alicia.
Alicia's played it. I've played it plenty, even off of the channel.
Yeah.
It just shocks me that you were never a party to that.
I was never invited to play with you.
Oh, good segue. So how do we invite people to the table?
That was an unintentional segue.
It was unintentional.
I'll tell you, I did not feel welcome at the Trek 12 table. No, it was just, there's so many games to play. I mean, that's one, you might be surprised to hear this. I didn't play Jekyll and Hyde either yet, so.
What?
I don't even know where Jekyll... Do you have Jekyll and Hyde?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Two of David's favorite games.
Now that you mentioned that, I don't remember seeing that lately. Anyway, we can stop talking amongst each other. And we're going to talk about getting people into gaming. And some of the things, like I said, to avoid, and some of the things that we do.
Yeah.
And whether or not you should even try.
You should try to get people into gaming.
I've heard some people say, hey, let people find gaming.
Okay, that's fair. But I think what we're going to talk about, too, is like those people that try to find gaming. It helps to have somebody that knows gaming to kind of guide them in so they don't have bad experiences.
I 100% agree with that, because there's a lot of bad experiences that can be had in gaming. And we'll talk about a little of that too. Since it's your topic, Emily, why don't you lead things off and tell us some of the things you're thinking about?
Yeah, definitely. So this was one of the topics I chose because we talk about being advocates for the hobby, right?
We do
and
indeed.
Part of that is getting to show people like the great parts of the hobby, the games we really like, why we really enjoy it. But what can be hard is board games are kind of a experience enjoyed with others, right? So you kind of need people to play with. And what I like to do is like to bring people in my life into the hobby too, right? And talk about what I really like, what I really enjoy. But what I've experienced sometimes is that you get so excited talking about things. You're like, this is really great. And it can actually turn people off a bit. Especially since board games can be this thing where like you played it when you were a kid, so people either think of it as a thing you do as a kid instead of like all that it has to entail, or they think of it as like people who play like 18xx games, or they see people with miniatures and stuff and they're like, oh, I don't know about that, I don't know how to do all that stuff. So it is this like really diverse set of ideas about what people think about board games, especially when they're not in the hobby yet and they haven't had a chance to play it.
Yeah, and I think there's this connotation too. If you don't really talk about what you do, when you just tell your friends, "Oh, I'm busy tonight. I've got a game night." There's instant connotations that you're sitting around playing charades or Pictionary or some party game that's going on way too long and everyone's bored, right? I mean, honestly, like, even when you see it in pop culture, I get really excited when I see people in TV shows who are like, "It's a game night tonight," and I'm like, "What are they getting out?" And like some instances, like Big Bang Theory, maybe they are actually playing like an actual hobby board game in the show, but generally it's not. It's something that I feel like is not a good advocate to the hobby because everyone just looks bored, no one's having fun, and they're playing some really boring old party game or like Monopoly or something.
It depends, though. So this brings up an interesting topic because I've heard some people talk about Monopoly, and as board game enthusiasts, the classic joke is like, no, not like Monopoly. However, I've heard some people say, maybe don't say it with that sort of tone and say, well, it's kind of like Monopoly, but there are a lot more new enthusiast gamers. What you don't want to do, and I think I'm a big believer in this, is you don't want to talk in any way, shape, or form that communicates judgment. If they say, if their experience is, if their experience is Monopoly or, even some of the like charades and stuff like that, try to embrace that and use it to onboard and pivot to some of the other things that they may not be aware of. I think that is one of the big things in the hobby is sometimes, and you were just mentioning too, people going to a game store and, trying to maybe investigate getting into the hobby.
Yeah, what's it going to be like? What's
seeing people who are kind of like poo-pooing, their game.
Yeah, that's a whole thing, and that's a whole other topic that I'm very passionate about. Is when, and maybe this is a little off topic, but when new players do come, you're exactly right. Don't laugh at them when they say that they like Monopoly or Clue. Because if you do that, and if you like laugh, even if you think you're being like funny, like, oh, well, wait till you see what I show you. I mean, you did just kind of insult their favorite game.
For sure.
And the game that they had experienced. And now they're like, well, maybe I don't really feel super comfortable here. And I like what you said, Dave, and I've heard other people say that too, and it's really smart of like, is it like Monopoly? Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
And then you try to think of games, or you find games like, okay, you came from Monopoly, let's try Power Grid or other games where you're bidding on things or trying to buy territories. Or like, you liked Clue? Okay, let's play
Mysterium.
Mysterium or some game of deduction where you can say, oh, here's some elements from Clue. What's that? Awkward Guess?
Awkward Guess. It's kind of Clue on steroids.
Which is kind of Clue on steroids. And I think that there are avenues when somebody says that, I think you just need to listen and not dismiss it.
Well, and it can be hard too because you go into a game store and you meet new friends and they're like, what kind of games do you like? If you've never played a lot of games, you just don't have a frame of reference, and it can be really awkward being like, I don't know, what games are there? So it's a go-to question we ask because it's helpful if you can say like, these are the types of games, like we can recommend other ones. But it's a hard starting point for people because if you're really coming from mostly a blank slate, it feels very intimidating to be like, well, I don't know what kind of games are like. What's even out there,
Especially with hobby gamers because we have such a language. Yes. We'll be like, well, do you like worker placement games, deck building games, tableau building games? Do you like games that have a take that element? And they're sitting there like, I don't know what any of that means. And maybe they're too embarrassed to say. Yeah. So I think that we as gamers can do better. Now, I think that language needs to exist because it's helpful to communicate what you like to other gamers. But I think the worst thing you could do with a brand new gamer at the table is throw terminology at them like that.
No, I think it's important with newer gamers who aren't familiar with that to really sort of, Emily and I were talking about this a little earlier, get into their headspace as where what they like. What you said early on about being too enthusiastic, sometimes if you're really enthusiastic about a game, it kind of suggests you're focused much more on what your interest is, regardless of who you're talking to. Like I could tell, my parents about one of my favorite Euros enthusiastically. It's not going to help that situation. But if I kind of really try to focus on other things they do in their life or games that they play, but even if it's not games, if they like solving puzzles, if they like riddles, more generic things like that, or the satisfaction of putting things together, that sort of thing.
You could even go off of theme too, right? And you're like,
for sure.
Oh, you love nature. Like here's a game with birds. You love birds, right? Wingspan is a great way to get into the hobby.
Yeah, and you have a lot of people that came from like card game backgrounds where they're like, do you like trick-taking games? Oh, I don't think I've ever played one. but then they've played euchre and they've played spades. They just don't know
That's what
that's what that is. They don't really know what they're playing. But having that knowledge of where a person comes from, I think is very, very important. And if you're inviting someone, specifically if you're inviting someone, you should kind of already know them, right?
Sure.
Assuming that you didn't just meet someone and invite them to game night. If it's like a
Hopefully.
coworker, family member, friend, you probably know what they like and don't like, or what their level is, right? What their limit is as far as like, this game is too much. And you're right, knowing their interests when it comes to theme.
Yeah.
I think a good steward of board gaming is going to put all of that together and painstakingly try to find the perfect game, right? And I think that's something that all of us do, either consciously or subconsciously, when bringing in friends and family.
Yeah, really, I can't say this enough about many things in life, but it applies here too. Use empathy. Like, think about them, not you. Think about what they want. I've been most successful in getting people to try games when I've played a game and I think of a person who doesn't really play a lot of games. I'm like, oh, this is doing things for me that I know they enjoy in other facets of their life, but maybe not necessarily board games, and maybe get them to try it at least once, because I think it would push some of those same buttons. My sister's one of those people who, for whatever reason, big board games, she doesn't want to learn. She doesn't want to like absorb a lot of the rules, which is another big hurdle. So if you can try to like
the teach can
break
be huge.
those barriers down, whatever it is, she doesn't like a lot of board games, but she does a lot of things. She'll play app games and things like Wordle, and she does it a lot.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of those same sort of things she's doing there that I know the same buttons will be pushed by a lot of the board games we've been playing.
And we were talking about too, like when you come into the hobby, it's very easy to feel dumb, right?
Yeah.
Like you're looking at these games and it's like, even if to an enthusiast might seem like this is a pretty simple game, you're looking at it like, what were all the rules? Who goes first? What can I do on my turn? Or like we just did a 15-minute teach and then I'm like, oh, it's my turn? What am I supposed to do? So you have to really have a lot of empathy, like you were saying, for them and be helpful during it, right? Like I think we're all pretty used to this when we do teaches, but like really helping somebody along and knowing that we feel dumb on sometimes our first playthroughs of a game, right? But I think we are used to it, and we're used to like when you play a game for the first time, you're learning. You're always learning, right? And you can do better the next time, but like there's a learning curve for a lot of games, so you have to know that and be gentle with yourself. And so we as enthusiasts have to be very gentle with new people, saying like, no, don't worry, you're not the only one. Like, we felt that way too. We know that too. Or I try to preface things with like, this game is going to have a lot of reading because it has a lot of cards and you're going to have to read all the cards. But you're going to really like it when we get to this part of the game. Or like, preface it with like, I know there's challenges. We all face these challenges, but here are the rewarding parts of the game.
And I think, I feel like I've said this before on Chit Chats in the past. Right to that, when you're introducing a game like that, I don't care if it's your favorite game, don't just dominate.
Yeah.
Like, don't make them feel stupider than they might already feel, right? Not to insult anybody, but some people do. They feel like, I'm not understanding this. This is a hard game. And watching you just like completely crush them, it's not fun.
It's never fun. If you feel like you're ignorant to what's going on or dumb about a game and you're not really getting it. And then there's someone who looks like Houdini just going through like, on autopilot doing it. It's not a good feeling for sure. And I would never advocate to, throw a game.
No.
But I'm a big believer in not playing the most competitive game in the world.
Well,
Don't
I
try
think
to
that
crush them.
you pay attention more to their game than yours at some points, right? So maybe your game isn't the best because you're not paying as much attention.
That's a great point.
But you're paying attention to like, oh, David, I see you're doing that. Hey, did you remember that you could also do this? Or have you thought about that? Or like, what was going through your head? So my game gets kind of put on the wayside a little bit because I'm like so invested in your playthrough.
I do that to myself all the time. At least I'm going to use it as an excuse. I'll oftentimes... And this is another point I want to make here, but what I was going to say is I'll oftentimes help people at the table. One of the things when you're doing that you got to be careful about is sometimes people, you got to read the crowd.
Yeah.
Like I always offer help and I tell people, hey, if you don't want the help, you just tell me and I'll shut up. Because there's people who are like, no, don't help me because it's going to ruin it. It makes me feel like I'm not doing it on my own.
Yeah, it ruins their enjoyment sometimes.
And some people will take it either way. I mean, I feel dumb sometimes even on my fifth game, playing a game. But yeah, when I'm teaching a game, I really try to focus more on their experience than mine. I've said it a million times, I don't really care about winning. I'm going to play the game again sometime. I'll play it with the two of you. I can try to be competitive then. If I'm teaching a new group, I'm more interested in making sure they have fun at the table than winning the game.
You just got it right on the nose, right? Are you trying to bring someone into gaming so that you have a new friend to play games with in the future? Or are you trying to just crush your opponents, right?
Sure.
Like, I mean, honestly, you got to ask yourself. And if you've got people in your gaming group whose only goal is just to beat everyone every time, and there are people like that, maybe they're not the one that you want to be seating with the brand new player.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because what you're doing when you're playing games, people have such different mindsets.
Objectives,
And you are like that. I mean, you're very much like, I will give you advice, even if it means losing the game, because I want you to have a good experience, because that means I get to play more games.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, what's more important, winning or playing more games, right?
Yeah, it's a win-win for sure.
For you,
like,
yeah.
I like playing games, so I don't care if I win as long as people want to keep playing.
But I'm not saying that everybody has to be that way.
No.
Because some people just aren't. And you might even get some new players who come in highly competitive.
Yeah.
You just have to, again, this goes back to step one, know the person that you're bringing into the hobby. So then you have to decide, like, a game. How do you even do that?
Oh, what game to use?
Yeah. How do you find the perfect game? Like, what goes into that decision?
Again, I think I'd go back to, well, first of all, we've talked about gateways on here before.
Sure.
I mean, if it's a new gamer, if it's a person new to gaming, it's going to fall into that sort of more accessible category. But then I'm going to look at those things, those buttons that get pushed. Is this someone who likes solving puzzles? Like, one thing I know about my sister is she likes deduction. Like, so any deduction game we get here that I love, oh yeah, she's played them all. Like, I take every deduction game we get. Cryptid, Mind Management, even though it's not really
It is deduction
in the traditional sense, those kind of Clue type games, because she grew up playing a lot of Clue. She really enjoys Clue. Her daughter, my niece, plays that, Clue and enjoys that. So I really use those sorts of things to guide me as to what games, like if they're going to like that, or if someone likes having, well, everyone probably, new gamers like to have fun while they're playing. So I do tend to take games that have a high satisfaction level.
Like big moments.
Every turn.
Sure.
Not a game where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, the end. Oh, we had to be focused on the end.
Right.
Those are generally not great, like, let's learn gaming, sorts of games.
Yeah, I go for things too that I think about the teach, and I think about how quickly we're going to be able to start playing, because a lot of people, like, the teach can just be kind of overwhelming, right? It's just a lot of words coming at you, especially if you're used to seeing mechanics and they're not, and you're like trying to explain how the mechanic is going to look in practice. I like something where we can get it on the table and see, especially if it has a good diversity of mechanics, because then we can play a quick game and say, which parts of that game did you like?
Right.
Yeah, that's
Which
a
things,
good point.
like, oh, I saw that you had, what was your favorite turn there, right? What was your favorite moment in the game? And then we can say, oh, that's just like this other game. We should play this game, which is a little bit more intense than that.
Something you just said too that's important is length of play.
That is important.
Not with necessarily everyone, but I'm just going to use my sister as an example all night long. The one thing I've definitely picked up on is even games that are pretty accessible and simple mechanically that might just take a while.
Yeah.
And not that this takes a long time, but the first time we played Cascadia, it was 4-player with her daughter, and I think Alicia and myself. And it took longer than what I'd pitched.
Okay.
Like I told
Sure.
them, I told them this will take us, and I used
An
a
hour or
time
so?
that it would take us. No, I
Yeah.
didn't even say an hour.
No?
No, I said less than an hour.
Oh.
But it probably took us more than an hour.
Yeah.
May have taken us an hour and a half. But largely that's due to the thinking that they were doing while they played.
Yeah.
And obviously on some level they were enjoying that thinking, or they wouldn't have been doing that.
Right.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, when they look at the amount of time they invested, sometimes that's just a turnoff to people. Like, oh, it took 90 minutes, or 2 hours. I don't want to play a game that's 2 hours.
Not just time too, but also time in between turns is important.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're playing some games like where you could go 20 minutes in between your turns, and like that can get, even for me, I start to lose interest in a game when it's been that long between my turn, and so. Yeah, there is a lot. I don't think there's a perfect answer other than Cascadia, which is
And like you said, there's
always a good choice.
There's a lot, but you also have to. The big thing, the one big takeaway, is make sure we're having fun at the table, right? You can pick whichever game. If you only had one game in your shelf and you're like, well, we have to pick this one, and I want to play something with you, you can still do what you can to make sure you're having fun, right?
Yeah, no matter the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's kind of the key to this whole thing. I mean, and there's a reason that we started saying that. I think, David, that was your idea originally, your pitch for that. And I think it resonates really well because I think new gamers, say that this is somebody that walked into your game night for the first time at the game store and they've never played a game that's this heavy in their life. Even if they don't know the game, even if they have a bad experience with the game, if you're making sure that everybody's just having fun, even outside of it, if everybody has a very positive attitude, if everybody's being very reaffirming to this new player, if they're all kind of chiming in with suggestions when asked for,
Sure.
you know.
Or
I
congrats when they do something good.
Right. I think you can recognize that. And, you know, if somebody's just very clearly not having fun, I think it's easy to say, hey, are you just not enjoying this? Maybe this game is just not the one. Maybe we just call it and start a new game. I think anything you can do outside of the game itself to ensure that they're having fun and a good experience means they will come back. Even if they hated the game, which we've had that at our local game store. We've had some really bad first play experiences, but those people have come back and played other games with us because they just had so much fun with the group. And I mean, there's only so many ways you can say be nice or be empathetic. There's only, you know.
Sure.
But I mean, at the end of the day, if you really want people to stay in the hobby, you have to make it fun for them.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I wanted to say about it is also I'd like to consider using games that give new players experience that they may not even be familiar with in gaming. You know, there's a lot of people still today that are new to games that have no concept that there's a cooperative game experience.
Oh, yeah.
that's to be had.
Sure, of course.
Things like that, different things in gaming where if you can get that new gamer to, after the game, go, I had no idea that something like this even existed. That's always a big win. One thing, though, to be careful of, especially in a co-op, again, don't be too judgmental about your teammates
or
in a cooperative
right,
game.
It's the first time.
I mean, alpha gaming is one thing, but also when someone does something that maybe not have been, you know, wasn't the smartest thing to do in the co-op, and you don't want to go.
You did that.
You don't want to go.
Gosh, we would have won if you hadn't done that.
You definitely don't
fun.
want to do that. But you just want to be sort of like nurturing and remember that, you know, everyone's at different skill levels.
Yeah,
for sure.
winning cannot be your priority, and I got to keep coming back to that. That cannot be your priority if you want people to stay in the hobby, or at least to come back to your game nights or to get into your, you know, especially if it's like a loved one or significant other.
It makes it trickier anyway.
It does.
I don't begrudge anyone for being competitive and wanting to win and getting their enjoyment from games that way. It is a tricky balance to have the wide range of people at the table.
And like if you're at the game store and someone new's coming in and you know your group is in that spot where they're gonna be really competitive, maybe you warn them ahead of time, right? And like say,
for sure,
maybe this isn't the good first game because we've played this before, we're pretty competitive about it. If you're into that, that's what this atmosphere is gonna be like. But it's like we were talking about with times too. It's all about setting expectations. And if they know what they're coming into, at least they have some warning. But a welcoming environment goes a lot further.
Yeah, and the worst thing you could ever do, and
the worst thing.
This is the one worst thing.
This is what now. Honestly, this is what I think is the worst thing you can ever do to a new gamer is if they come to game night,
kill them.
That's pretty bad. They'll never play
Don't
again.
Kill anyone.
No, but seriously, if somebody comes to a game night with their favorite game, do not make fun of it. Just don't. I don't understand. I see it happen all the time. Somebody comes with Dominion and people are like, Dominion? I haven't played that in 10 years. Don't. They obviously brought that game because they know it, they feel comfortable with it, and they love it. It's not hard to not make fun of people in that situation.
Whatever the game is.
Yeah.
But I see it happen. I see it happen at game days and game stores. People like to have a little laugh, like, oh, Catan, ha ha ha. But like, I mean, that you've ruined their experience, and that upsets me. I don't think people should do that.
And for no reason. Like those aren't bad games. So
No,
it's just
that's
like
what I was about to say. They're not bad games. They're just old to you.
Yeah,
And but like the number of times I've taken an old game off the shelf and played it again,
right,
and gone, oh wow, I forgot what this game was doing, and I remember now why I liked it once upon a time, even though I haven't gotten to the table for years and years and years.
And old doesn't mean bad, right? Everything is new to them.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
everything is a new experience, even though it might be something you've done 100 times.
So speaking of games and getting them to the table, that's a segue, by the way.
Oh, is it?
We've been playing some games. We're not going to talk about a ton of them, but there is one that I wanted to bring up that Emily's played recently, that we played with her, including Ryan and Alicia, and that was Teach
Oh
You.
yeah, that's right. It's been a long time coming, honestly.
Yeah.
Emily's
And
big.
that's one game too where you have stories about like describing that
Oh, yeah.
game to people who don't play a lot
Yeah,
of
by
games.
the way, don't bring... I love Teach You. It's one of my favorite games. Maybe don't bring people into the hobby with Teach You. It is a scary game unless someone really loves trick-taking games, but just happens to not have played
We're
it.
talking about that with Skull King too. Skull King's another one that's like that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh,
a
this
little
card's
bit.
worth 20 points, and then someone plays the pirate, and then the pirate takes that. It's worth 40 points unless there's a mermaid, and the mermaid loses to the pirate king.
If you've never played Teach You, it's a ladder game, but also a trick-taking game. And by ladder game, I mean it's one of those games where you're trying to get rid of all of the cards in your hand. And then the tricks that you're taking, you're playing sort of effectively like poker hands. So you could play a full house, and then the next player has to play a full house to follow
A better
suit,
full house,
if you
yeah.
will. And there's really no suits to speak of except when you're playing a bomb. And this is what it feels like to teach you. And you don't even know the half of it. So Emily,
don't.
I want to ask you,
Yeah.
how did you feel about, I mean, I know you liked it, spoiler alert,
Spoilers.
but what did you feel about the learning experience of it? Because Alicia, my wife, if you haven't watched the channel much, she plays it even more than me. She plays it on an app, and I've never seen anyone teach you as fast as she
was
did.
It was an efficient teach.
And it was good.
It
She
was-
was really good. Like, I thought it was too fast. And I know you know your way around card games, but I was like, I was jumping in, trying to go, and there's this, and don't forget
No,
this.
but she did a good job too because of
She did.
exactly what I was saying. Where like we got to start playing, and like really, the words you have to say to explain Tichu don't make a lot of sense, right? The dog means your partner's gonna
Yeah.
go first. You're like, what did you just say? But when I see it played, I'm like, oh, that's what that means now. Like it means that David played this, so now I get to play a trick.
And that's your route, then it goes around, and then it might
Yes.
be you, and it might be... Like,
In
Gen-
words,
there's
it
a
doesn't
lot.
make
There's
sense.
a lot to the game.
There's no other game that sounds more like you're making up the rules in the moment than teach you. Like, I've tried to tell my father about it, and I realized halfway, without having the cards in front of him, when you're verbalizing it, you start to think, well, it just sounds like I'm making this up.
Well,
Like-
it does feel weird. The 5s are worth 5 points. Okay. The 10s are worth 10 points. Nothing else is worth points. The king is worth...
No, the king's worth 10
points.
points. The dragon's worth 25 points, but you have to give the dragon away.
That's the part. It's like, you win a trick, you're like, okay, the
And the
dragon
Phoenix
can win
is worth
any
negative
trick.
15.
Right,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like you're about to say, unless you're playing on a Tuesday, then I mean it is that.
And the
crazy
person
of a
that goes
game.
out last has to give their cards to the person that went out first. And
It is.
sometimes you can play the Phoenix and it's worth negative points.
But even once you start getting the rules, you're like, okay, the rules make sense to
Sure.
me. Then there's like another level to the game of like how to play it well,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
Well,
like,
that's the-
I
I'm
feel
still
like
not doing that.
Well, that's the thing about Teach You. That's why people come back to it, because there are
Yes.
so many strategies to it. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much depth to what is kind of a simple game.
yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, so
yeah.
you liked it.
I did like it, so I downloaded an app too, and I've been playing it
nice.
online
Oh.
because.
When we come back, basically, Emily and Alicia are
No,
gonna
I'm
just-
still quite bad. It
Yeah.
tells you your records, and mine is like 0 and 5,
Oh.
and the others are like 427 wins and 300 losses. I was like, wow, you guys are serious about
Serious
Teach You.
I like Teach You quite a bit.
I definitely want to get some games of Teach You in at the Buckeye Game Fest for
sure
sure.
we
Yeah,
will.
yeah. I'm
So,
excited for it.
what have you played recently?
I mean,
Not with me.
I haven't played board games with anybody. I
Are you gonna bring up Elden Ring?
was a little bit gonna say that I haven't really had time to play board games. I have never been so hooked on a video game, in like not even World of Warcraft at the height of World of Warcraft. Was I just so
Really?
Well,
Wow,
okay,
that's-
maybe since then. Maybe that was the last
That's
time.
saying something.
And that was a long time ago when that game was like at the height of its popularity. I'm like, you want to go out to the board game night? Now I want to stay in and I want to play Elden Ring and get that next item.
Yeah.
Now
the
we
next
know what the
dungeon.
real reason was.
Well, I was out of town actually. I was out of town for a while, so I didn't really get to play any games.
Ryan's been making excuses for why he can't come, and now we all.
Yeah, I
heard
was
the
out
real
of
thing.
town, but because I was out of town, that was a whole week that I didn't get to play Elden Ring. So when I got back, I was like, I got to get back in there. I mean,
He walked
the game,
in, his wife and his son, they were like there at the door, and he just blew right past them.
I told them, I was like, I really missed Elden Ring. No, something about that game really hits all the right boxes to me, and honestly, it hits a lot of the gamer boxes for me. A lot of the board game boxes too.
Really?
Like putting together your sets and seeing all your different like stats move up, like all those role playing game elements, and
For
then
sure.
like the sense of exploration in that game of like what's I'm not going to talk about Elden Ring. We could probably do a whole review.
You
of
have
this game.
already.
I have.
We've talked
it's
about
been
it for
30 minutes. I've just been playing Elden Ring. I literally haven't been playing anything else.
I'm hooked on it
I'm
too.
not, to be clear.
No, yeah, you haven't played.
Brian plays it. So I have seen gameplay of it.
Elden Ring is touching all of our lives. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It is a very difficult open world sort of fantasy adventure game with some really interesting and unique, art design and whatnot. But it is absolutely got its hooks in me too. Like if I'm not playing Elden Ring, although I've taken a little bit of a break, but when I was not playing it, I was consuming content about it.
I watched a lot of YouTube videos while I was gone for the week, and then even this last weekend, I was out of town for the weekend, and I was watching Elden Ring videos on the drive and everything. I don't know.
No board game?
I haven't played a ton. We played some older stuff, like we played Messina recently again. We taught it to somebody who hadn't.
Oh, that's right, you did.
Who hadn't played Messina, and this is it's crazy. It's like Messina already feels to me. I'm like, that's an old game.
I was gonna say, I don't think most people are gonna say
it's not even out here.
It's not even out in the U.S. Old game.
I know, and I it feels so weird. I'm like, I had forgot. Like one of my friends was like, I never got to play, and I was like, you didn't play Messina yet? He's like, well, it's not even out yet, and I was like, oh, duh.
Real welcoming to new gamers. Right?
This is not a new gamer.
You didn't play Messina, you
this
idiot.
Is actually the guy that when I came to Indy brought me into his gaming group. And so, yeah, I mean, we played it. We had a great time playing Messina. But other than like playing Teach With You and then doing some of the live stream stuff and some of the games that we've been playing for the channel, like we played Nightmare Cathedral.
Yeah, we played a lot for the
which
channel.
Was a lot of fun. Yeah, we've been playing a lot of games for that. I will say also one that we played on the live stream was Motor City. That game has been in my mind too. I'm like, I need to get back and play Motor City again because that was a really fun game.
Yeah, well, speaking of games we played on the channel, Tenpenny Parks.
Oh yeah, that was quite fun.
Perfectly pleasant little tile placement game, worker placement game. I played it again this weekend with Alicia. We had a lot of fun with it.
Nice.
And we didn't get a chance to play Decorum. I did take Decorum to play with Alicia, but we didn't get a chance to play it. But Emily and I played a little bit of Decorum, which is a very unique game.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Like, I've never played a game like that. Another one, though, that I played this weekend that we haven't talked about at all, and it hasn't been on the channel, is Yak. And this is a new one from Plan B under the Pretzel Games sort of brand umbrella. This is a definitely family weight, sort of accessible game, and it has the most adorable, and I'm putting pictures up right now, I'm sure, these little yaks pulling these carts that carry the stones that you're trying to build a wall in front of you with, and also different resources. There's like bread, milk, and meat. And you're basically, there's 4 yaks in a 4-player game going around this thing, and on your turn, or everyone kind of plays somewhat simultaneously, you're interacting with the yak and its cart in front of you.
Okay.
So it has some stones and it might have some food, and you're basically trading food for stones. When you take the stones, you're building this wall, and there's lots of different point scoring for how you build the wall. You might want to get a lot of colors or put them in this particular pattern, that sort of thing. But the yaks will also kind of randomly somewhat, because you're pulling stones out of this bag to refill the carts, and when you pull certain stones, the yaks turn and go the opposite direction. So
Reverse.
You were planning on this yak coming in front of you next, and you really wanted those 2 orange stones for your situation, but all of a sudden the yaks turned around and they go the other way, which that doesn't happen too often, and it does add a level of randomness that I think is actually quite fun, that chaos. But it was a fun little game. We're going to take that to the con as well and play it.
Yeah, I'd like to. Are you taking Decorum too?
Yeah, we're going to have a car full of
Oh yeah, that's true. So before we go, I do want because if you're watching this, there's a chance you're probably not at Buckeye Game Fest, but maybe you might are.
You might
and maybe you're coming for the weekend. Let's play some games because we do have some scheduled games that we're going to be playing with fans or people that are there. I guess they might be fans, or maybe they
might be fans.
Maybe they will be fans after this week.
More likely than not, they just want to play the game, and they have to play with us.
But find us on the floor. Leave some comments below. Let us know if you're at Buckeye Game Fest, because we're gonna have some free time just to play games with people. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
We're excited for it.
Yeah, and if in particular, if you're watching this and you're at Buckeye Game Fest, and it's before Saturday that you're watching, we are going to try to record in front of a live studio audience an episode of Chit Chat. Our next episode of Chit Chat will be from the Buckeye Game Fest.
Wow.
So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we don't get ridiculed by a live studio audience as we're doing this.
That's hard to cut out.
Hopefully more than one person is sitting. I know Alicia's going, so she'll at least be sitting in the audience.
got her
And she's the one
signs.
heckling.
Yeah, she'll be heckling for sure. But yeah, we're going to be going to the Buckeye Game Fest. We're going to be playing lots of games, so we'll have a lot more to talk about. We're taking all the newest stuff that we've had here on the channel lately, some of the stuff that we haven't even done content on.
Jeremy will be there with us. And
Jeremy
Alicia?
will be, the whole gang will be there. It's
Everyone's
going to
gonna
be
be
a lot of
there.
fun. It's not too far from us. It's about a 3-hour drive, a little farther from Jeremy. He's flying in for the event, but we're going to be there from Thursday to Sunday. So yeah, if you're anywhere close to Columbus, Ohio, from the 7th to the 10th of April,
Come on down.
go check it out. We're going to be there hanging out playing games.
Yeah,
for
or
sure.
going to North Market and eating food. That'll be happening as well.
I mean, I'm definitely going to be doing that. Columbus is a nice little town.
Yeah, I like it. I enjoy that. Cons there a lot.
So before we go, any other games anyone's been playing?
Yeah, Elden Ring. Oh, did I mention that one yet?
Stop.
I will say, next time I can't wait because we're getting ready to play Dark Quarter. So
Yeah.
that one I'm super excited about. And then this Wednesday, we're getting to live stream the new Marvel Champions box, which is Sinister Motives, which is Spider-Man
I'm sure
themed.
Am I
you're
doing
excited
that
for
with you?
that.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Am
Well, I
doing
hope
that
so.
with you?
We'll find
I'm not
out.
great at Marvel Champions,
I
so
am, so
hopefully.
it's fine.
Ryan's like, I'll carry
I'll
you.
fly in Brad
I'll carry.
Sanderson from Step Into the Portal. He'll come and.
So tune in Wednesday to watch Ryan Alpha Game, the two of us playing Sinister Motives, the Marvel Champions expansion. Yeah, we did just get that. Ryan's been super stoked to
I
get
am,
it to the
yep.
table for sure. But if you have any questions, and like we said earlier, if you have any thoughts on the topic tonight of how to get people into gaming,
Yeah.
make them in the comments below. And as always, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you next time. Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.